Hello, my absolutely beautiful astrology soulmates. It's me, Stormie Grace, and in this video, we are going to look at what is the full moon, how do we use it, what does it mean when we're talking about it in a monthly cycle astrologically, and last, I am going to dive into the full moon moving through each of the houses so that as you're learning or as you're coming back to the astrology and you're hearing that we have a transiting full moon coming to a particular sign, you can align that with which house it's actually happening in for you. And this helps to take it one step further of instead of just understanding in the general consciousness that we're having a full moon and what that means for all of us, it's really where astrology gets to get into the nitty-gritty, into the details of what's happening in your life and your space, and that is where astrology gets really delicious. So if you are looking for that kind of content, you're looking for those kinds of answers, make sure you stay tuned to this video. And of course, because we're going house by house, you'll be able to click into the timestamps down below underneath this video. If the video resonates with you, helps you learn something, I hope that you will give it a like, and I definitely want you to subscribe and hang out here because we're doing astrology learning, translating those cosmos into real live usable language so that you can live a little bit better, easier, and all of that good stuff. All right, so as we jump in, first of all, what is a full moon? Astrologically speaking, the aspect that happens when we're looking at a full moon in the sky is that the moon will be in one sign and in an opposing sign or on the opposite side, we'll see the sun. So they do a dance that looks like this. And what's really happening is as they are opposing or they're pulling away from each other, reflecting this light, a lot of light. It's a very bright time. The illumination is intense. It's the brightest that we'll have in the month. They are also highlighting the polarities within each of us. My needs versus my wants, home, family, my money, our money, myself and my own independence, my friendships, right? So it's always lighting and igniting these polarities. Now, what an opposition in general is always asking us to do to resolve it is to find the sweet spot in the middle of the two poles that are happening. So instead of it being really high this way and we're getting it go longer and we're pulling and bringing more attention on this side, we're looking for the sweet spot in the middle where both of these energies create an integration. So at the full moon, we're being asked to end something, acknowledge something, or to make an adjustment that actually allows for not only the revelation of what we see underneath all of this light, but also the integration of the two signs that the full moon is happening in, those qualities and those characteristics. Now we see the full moon happening every month. It's happening in cycle. So every month you're going to experience not only the new moon that is a little bit quieter, it's more of an inside job, you're planting seeds of intention, your hopes and your dreams, but at the full moon, you're taking things in your life, you're shining all the lights on it, you're able to look at it clearly, emotionally, you have clear content and consciousness, and you want to very publicly make changes. So what are the changes that you're thinking about ending, acknowledging, or adjusting? First of all, I have 3 questions that you can consider asking yourself at the time of the full moon. First of all, which of my relationships, projects, ideas, actions, or attitudes are ready to come to culmination or come to an end? Which of these things? Now, you're going to depend on where this is happening in your chart, but what do you feel like naturally, internally, is bringing itself and coming to an end in your life? Now, you'll need to look at the question of, what do I need to acknowledge? Do I need to acknowledge that I'm doing very well at this particular thing, or when I do this particular thing in my life, it lacks meaning. It doesn't actually mean anything to me and I need to acknowledge it. Or when I do this thing over here, or I interact with this person, it has a lot of meaning for me. So there is an acknowledgement of what I'm seeing from the inside out at an emotionally conscious level that I'm stuck to look at, right? I'm being asked to look at that. Or what do I need to adjust is my third question. Where do I feel like I'm ready to make an adjustment to take things to the next level, right? I'm no longer willing to stay behind the scenes. It's time for me to move to the public stage. So end, acknowledge, or adjust. Where are these questions showing up for you in the different departments of life? And this is where the full moon is being particularly helpful to guide you towards where the changes are being revealed to you. That said, the full moon is an absolutely emotionally revealing time. And it's the difference between if you walk into a room under the new moon and the lights are dark and you can't really see anything, there's maybe some semblance of light, so you're feeling your way very intuitively through that, and walking into the room under a full moon where all of the lights are on so you can absolutely see everything. So again, you can trust the discernment, the epiphany, the revelations that are being shown to you, and you can trust your decision making. And they're probably a lot more public than they are just private. So stick with me and let's see what the full moon means through the houses. So if you're experiencing the full moon happening through your first house, what it is illuminating and bringing your attention to end, acknowledge, or adjust is something around your own self-awareness, your life path, your life direction, where you would like to go. It's also really a time of acknowledgement of where you may be releasing yourself out a little bit more into the public, into the wild. You're taking on a different persona, a different aesthetic style. You're showing up differently in the world. And this also will help move you in the direction of something you want to achieve. So you're ending, acknowledging, or adjusting. You're releasing or changing so that you can head in a direction that is important to you. And this is important to keep in mind as well when we're dealing with the energy of the first house, is that sometimes it can be so illuminating here that it actually changes your physical environment or your external environment. So if something's not working, if you don't like your landscaping, if you don't like your personal look and landscaping, a full moon in the first house may give you enough impetus and enough light to make the changes that are going to benefit you in your personal travel vehicle in order to move forward to where you'd like to go next. When we're experiencing the full moon happening through the second house, the house of money, possessions, self-worth, self-esteem, we're asked these questions of not only our assets and how we make money, what we use our creative talents to make money for, but we're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust also how we feel around these particular areas. How do you feel in terms of connections to the work that you do, the creative talent that you make assets from, the things that you have in your home, in your life, in your possessions? How do you feel about these things? And are you still feeling a connection to it? Many times at the full moon, we can see a reassessment of the budget. How do I feel about the current budget that I'm living on? Do I feel like I need to make a little bit more money? I need to make a little bit less money? Do I need to tighten up? What do I need to do here? Where do I need to end, acknowledge, or adjust in the second house area of my life? Now, one of the lenses I love to bring the attention to at the full moon in the second house is so much about how you value your worth. What is the value and the worth that you feel of yourself that is later translated into the money or the possessions that you have, earn, or are keeping? At the full moon, you have an opportunity to shed all the light on what's going on in this particularly financial and intimate area of your life and make the adjustments that are needed. Now, what can also happen at this particular full moon through the second house is you are able to see a possession, whether that be, a piece of jewelry, a couch, something like that in your possession form that you're willing to let go of because it no longer has value. Whatever it is that you are also shedding at this particular full moon, you can be connected to the innermost pieces of yourself to understand that it is a saying no to something so that you can say yes energetically and emotionally to something else in your financial realm. If you're experiencing the full moon happening in your third house, you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust something around your communication or your learning style. The third house is very much so a place of communication. We have siblings that happen in here. We have short distance travel and local things that are around you. You know, you can even see sometimes if there's something going on in the third house, that something's happening in the housing market around you. Maybe you're buying something, you're selling something. We have contracts that live in the third house. Your network of people that you connect with and share information with also live in the third house. Are you a writer? And that's the way that you communicate. You're writing a course, you're building a course, you're writing a book. These things can all be seen through the lens of the third house. So at the full moon, your connection with this particular area in an emotional way is being brought into full light. Do you need to travel? Is it time to travel? Is it time to leave this contract, jump into a new contract? Are you starting to look at different places to live or to rent? Are you visiting a sibling, or you have interactions happening with your sibling that need to have an adjustment or a culmination in some way? Now, I also like to put cousins and neighbors into the third house arena as well. So if you're having a full moon in this particular area, you could just as easily get news of adjustment or emotional revelation about a neighbor or a cousin or someone who's very close to you. I really have enjoyed over my years as a practicing astrologer watching the full moon happen in the third house and having writers be free of any kind of writer's block or writing blockages, such as actually getting it to the publisher that they have been working with. So if this is happening for you, or if you've experienced full moons in the third house and you regularly get like these blockages pulled out of the way, let me know in the comment section down below. A full moon in the fourth house is going to light up your space of home, family, real estate, property, your roots, things having to do with your parents or your mother. Now, the other thing I like to remember about the fourth house is that it can also be our own internal psychological default settings or belief systems that come from the way that we have interpreted our rooting systems, okay? So if you've got a full moon in the fourth house, yes, absolutely, you could be having changes in your living situation, in your actual housing situation. Something could be happening with your family. Your domestic zone is being lit up to be observed, absolutely. But again, you're being asked to end something, acknowledge something, or to adjust something. And it doesn't always mean that you have to move out of your house. Sometimes what you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust, the way that you do that is simply to move your furniture around. Maybe someone's moving into your home or someone's moving out of your home. You're not actually the one that is leaving. These can be things that also change your interactions with your parents, okay, or your grandparents, whatever's happening in the domestic zone. Also things that have to do with your own personal nurturing and security and where you are connected to those things at an emotional level. These are the shifts quite publicly that usually present themselves when the full moon is traveling through the fourth house. The full moon traveling through the fifth house of play, pleasure, retreat, of fun, of joy, of childlike engagement, of children themselves, speculation. We take a risk in the fifth house. So if you've got a full moon happening here, you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or to make some adjustment to something going on in one of these areas. Now, one explanation that I love in the fifth house is conception. You've got different ideas around conception. Now, whether that is conception of a child to include adoption, surrogacy, any of these kinds of things can also come in this realm, all of those things, or it's conception of a business. Maybe you're turning something that was just a hobby into a business and you're conceiving the idea and you're going to take a risk to put it out there. Whatever it is that you take on in the fifth house has a fair amount of joy plus risk added to it when you decide to launch it out into the world. So at the full moon, the things that are not genuinely pleasurable to you, that are not genuinely heartfelt, that your heart is not connected into, you maybe begin to see shifts in it. And it can also be something that illuminates for you in your own heart space. If you're a parent, things happening for and around your children. And as those changes are happening in that particular zone for you, you may find yourself going, man, that brings up a lot of feelings for me around my children, around their safety, their ideas, around them taking a risk. So it can equally be translated in that way as well. Now, I do like to consider the fifth house anymore also as you as the child of your parents. So illuminations could be happening here too that somehow impact your parents once they happen to you. You're having a child, you're adopting a child, you are starting a business that will down the road impact your parents as well. But it comes through the lens of you as a child. Now, the other thing in the fifth house is romance. There is romance living in this fifth house, and it's not the romance of committed partnership. It's the romance of I meet you, this is exciting, I'm swept away. It's romance. And you have to take a risk with whichever romance comes in, whether it's a stranger or a friend becomes a lover, whatever the romance is, there's this element to it. And at the full moon, you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust. Are you going to move this thing forward, or is it time to cut it off and let it go? A full moon happening here in the sixth house is asking for an ending, acknowledgement, or adjustment to things in our daily routine, health and wellness. And I like to include mental health and wellness in this as well, because it's something we take care of on a daily basis. In the sixth house, we're also going to see maybe you are a caretaker or are of service to someone. Small animals will live in the sixth house. The cats, the smaller dogs, the gerbils get in here. If you have a ferret, I don't know, do you have a sugar squirrel? Whatever it is, they are in the sixth house as well because they require a state of daily maintenance and attention. So as the full moon is here, you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or to make adjustments to your daily routine. How are you caring for yourself? Do you have a good daily routine that is bringing you fulfillment, or does there need to be an adjustment there in some way? Are there tasks and business projects that you've been putting off and now it's time for the revelation to get them done? Or if you happen to be someone who is self-employed or a freelance person, the sixth house can also be the house of projects or work coming in independently. And if you've been working on something or been working towards something on a day-to-day basis, sometimes you can see the culmination and the successful delivery of that project or that particular invoice that you have been working on. So whatever is happening in your day-to-day life, the full moon is going to bring a change in this particular area, which is going to kick that daily routine into an entirely different gear sometimes. When the full moon is happening in your seventh house, we're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust things around our conscious, chosen, one-on-one relationships. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be your marriage or something that's even romantic. It can be, absolutely, but we've also got this impetus of business partnerships living here. The partnership of you with you. The partnership of you with a higher power, the partnership of you with anyone that you're in a contractual agreement with. Are you in a legal dispute? Are you getting divorced? Are you separated? Are you in a situation where you maybe have an open enemy? And when I say open enemy, what I mean is you know that you are at odds with this other person, place, thing, or entity. So it's not a surprise to you that there is some kind of tension or problem happening here. So as the full moon is happening here, yes, it can absolutely be about our committed romantic relationships. And sometimes at a full moon, we see people absolutely deciding we're taking it to the next level. We're going to bring this together, and that's the integration. We're serious. We're going to take the next step. Just as easily, you can see people in relationships saying, no, this is it. This is not working out for us, and we need to go ahead and let this go. But I want to be clear that it is not just the romantic relationships. It's simply a question at this particular full moon is, does the contract or the way that we are moving together in this conscious, chosen, one-on-one relationship still work? Now we can also see adjustments that just need to happen. So you think of the case of a business partnership that's maybe gotten off track and the partners don't understand each other, which can also be said about a marriage or a spiritual relationship. And we have to look at where do we just need to end, acknowledge, or adjust the current behaviors, not break up, but end what it has been and let it to begin anew. So these are things to think about in that very conscious chosen one-on-one 7th house. When we've got the full moon traveling through the 8th house of intimacy and assets. In the intimacy way, it literally means you see into me. So there's some kind of partnership connection that is happening here, that if that connection changes, moves, changes direction, you're going to be impacted as well. And a really great example of that is sex, right? If I'm having sex by myself, that's not a very intimate necessarily relation because I can relate to myself. But when we involve another person, if another person moves a different way or they have a different response, this is going to involve me in a very deep, intimate kind of way. So when we talk about the intimacy, it's not just the physical act of sex, which does happen in the 8th house space, but we're also talking about the depth at which what you do or what another entity does will impact me. This is also the way to consider this. But also we have just intimacy. You see into me, where I share deep vulnerability, I share trauma, I share healing, I share astrology. I'm going way below the surface of what's happening here. And we've got the practical side of the 8th house as well, which can be taxes, inheritance, wills, anything having to do with insurance. When we come to the asset side, we're also looking at a partner's money or collaborative money. Did you get a loan from a bank? You've got student aid. Your actual partner's money is changing, or you're collaborating with another person and there's a financial piece that's in the mix. Whatever's happening here, when the full moon comes, you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or to adjust where the intimacy and the assets need to be adjusted. Are you carrying too much weight of one side of the partnership? Right? Are you needing to have a conversation with your partner about you need to bring in some more money? Or do you need to have a conversation with your partner that's like, what are we going to do for insurance? What makes sense to us? Because there's also a sense of this is significant. It's a heavier, more weighty area. So we're going to carry a bit more commitment in whatever we take on in this particular arena of the 8th house. So what is it for you that needs this deeper level adjustment? Because it's going to illuminate in you, in your life, in your consciousness, in your psyche, where we're willing to keep the intimacy as an asset in our lives, or we're willing to shed it as well. A full moon rocking and rolling over here through the 9th house is going to bring our attention to publishing, marketing, broadcasting, anything we do to expand up and out. And this includes travel to foreign countries. We're not talking local travel. We want foreign countries where we're getting further away, long distance travel. But now here we are, in the age of the digital revolution, how you travel something at great lengths can also be done by creating a YouTube channel, creating a podcast. So when we look at the 9th house, we also have to consider the message that is happening here that we want to reach in some way. We're going to be sharing our story. We're going to be sharing teachings. We're going to be sharing philosophies. We're going to also be looking at sharing some level of ceremony with what we are expanding out from this 9th house. Now, I also like to point out that the 9th house is very much so a house of faith. Okay, what I actually believe, the philosophies and guiding actions and attitudes that I build my life off of come from the 9th house as well. And it's important that I understand them because my goals and my ambitions for my life will also be based out of these foundations. So as the full moon is shedding all of this light, we are asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust which philosophies, which ideas, which new truths need to come and be revealed to us in order to make our way towards this future expansion that we would like to experience. It's also going to be a place where it shows us where the higher education path or training in our lives needs some kind of adjusting. Oftentimes under a full moon, what we can see is somebody saying, I really want to go to law school. and then it turns out they have like a change of heart or a change of philosophy, and they find out they would like to go to a different kind of higher education program. Or you weren't accepted forever, and under the full moon, the opening is created for you. Maybe you find out you need or can teach. Are you a student or are you a teacher in the 9th house? The full moon will help you see which of those positions has the most meaning for you and make the accurate adjustment. A full moon moving through the 10th house of career, soul level calling, prestige, public recognition, and what I like to call your title in public, what we call you in public. Because maybe you're not working, maybe you're retired, you still have a title that we call you in public through that 10th house. So when the full moon is coming through here, you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust the title that we call you on stage. Now, to be more specific, one of the titles that we may call you is, yes, we may call you CEO of whatever, and it's very much so pointed at this business kind of area of your life, but we may also call you mother, we may call you father, we may call you grandmother, we may call you community volunteer. Sometimes when the full moon is happening through the 10th house, we didn't call you anything and now you're famous on the internet, right? So what do we call you in public, and what is the message that you're getting public recognition for? Because you may be being asked to end, acknowledge, or to adjust in this particular area to make sure that what you're saying, you're doing has meaning, has impact, right, is important to you. It's going to be a time where maybe you're deciding you're letting it go. I don't want this title anymore, to include, I have definitely seen plenty of people get married or divorced under the full moon and literally change that title, change the name. Now, in many ways too, we can just bring this to the practicality of the career path. So it could be a time you're getting recognition, you're finally getting that promotion, or the pathway to the career experience you'd like to have is making its way to opening, and you're able to make the adjustments in order to get on that path and take that stairway up. The full moon traveling through the 11th house of friends, organizations, social networks, social media, things happening with ambitions that you have for yourself, but they need to be achieved at some kind of social level. And they make you happy. Whatever the ambition is that you want to be known for at that social level, it actually makes you quite happy. Okay, there's a lot of validation that comes from this 11th house. And sometimes we forget in astrology to talk about that. So there is the you in here as well. But causes that you are connected to, whether they be political, economic, social, whatever it is, it's all happening in this very social 11th house space. So when we've got a full moon happening here and you're being asked to end, acknowledge, or adjust, maybe nothing's really happening to you, but you're being called as a friend, a support network. You're being called to step up and rise in some way to be of support to someone or something in your support network, or you're being called for a cause of something that you're going to take on. Now, here in this digital revolution as well, we know that the 11th house is loaded with our social medias and our social networks in those ways. So at the full moon, it's again going to be this question of, is what I'm saying, does what I'm saying on my socials, my social medias, have a cause? What is my presence? What is the purpose of what I'm saying? Does it have meaning to me, or do I need to bring something to culmination? Do I need to face something that I have done or I felt compelled to do while I've been in these social spaces? Whatever it is, the full moon is going to bring it publicly to your attention that it is time to relook at this area. And sometimes what it looks like is, I don't belong to this friendship group anymore, or I don't belong to this organization anymore. We're not in alignment anymore, or it's time for me to find my tribe. And now that I see what it is that I'm trying to achieve, I'm able to move towards the right tribe of people to support me on the journey. The full moon making its way through the 12th house can be, depending on your experience, one of the most challenging houses to really pick out what's being brought to light, because we become so sensitive to the things that are happening in the 12th house space that sometimes it can feel like everything is happening and nothing's. Everything's being illuminated and nothing's being illuminated. Or things are being illuminated, but what is there to do about it? This can be the sense of the 12th house, where we have things that are being illuminated to us from in between the worlds. right? A place where something was not tangible and we're working on it, creating, playing with it, and soon to bring it into the world to make it tangible. It's also things happening behind the scenes, spirituality. Maybe you're working on a research project or something that's being done behind the scenes. We have affairs, we have illnesses that happen behind the scenes. All of these things, we don't know of them from the 12th house until they manifest themselves in a physical reality. But in the 12th house, we can also have a full moon that is lighting our attention at this time to patterns of destruction, patterns of our own undoing, behaviors, beliefs, spiritual concerns that we need to tend to, our relationship with rest and retreat. It can be a wonderfully, highly creative full moon as it travels this 12th house space as well. It's not all gloom and doom, but whatever it is, you're going to be asked to end, acknowledge, or to adjust something that is not quite public to others, but you know it's there. And it's creating that princess in the pea moment, as I like to call it, where you know something's happening down below, or you know something's happening behind the scenes, and that little bit of irritation is what needs your attention to end it, acknowledge it, or to adjust it, and get yourself into a pattern of comfort, adjust your belief structure, or to go ahead and let something transition into its next state of being. The 12th house and the 8th house tend to be the two houses that more things can be packed in there than one lifetime's experience can fully explain. But what you can know for sure about the 12th house space is that anything that is happening in between the worlds, or that is not fully clear to your consciousness or needs to be kicked out of the present consciousness, usually is easier to sense at the full moon time, and it will likely bring your attention to it through your dreams, through patterns, through signals that are showing up. Sometimes we have these moments that feel like they are what we call spirit guides or guided moments, where somebody walks into your life, they say one phrase to you at the bananas, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was looking for, or I didn't know that, I didn't understand that. Information is revealed to you out of nowhere. Now, we do have other things that happen in the 12th house as well. We have affairs, we have things that are going on. The things that go bump in the night also happen in the 12th house as well. So we need to be mindful what is being illuminated, because as this leaves the 12th house and we get ready for the full moon happening in the first house, it'll be time for whatever that thing was in the hiding to have a revelation. Maybe you're working on research behind the scenes, and now it's time to present that document. All right, my absolutely beautiful friends, I hope that this video helped you and is a quick reference guide for you to see when the full moon is traveling through each house every month, a quick reference for you to know how this could be impacting you and your personal chart. Now, of course, always I want you to remember that the best way to really understand what specifically down to the nuance is happening in your chart is to first of all be your own astrologer. And right here on the Stormie Grace YouTube channel, we have got free education from the ground up on Western astrology in the YouTube Academy playlist. So if you are learning astrology, you want to go deeper, you want to become your own astrologer, we have got hours and hours, 50 classes worth of playlist from the history of Western astrology moving all the way to synastry, free and available for you on this channel. And if that's not doing it for you, you can always come and see me for a reading or go to your local trusted astrologer, because looking at the details and the nuance of your chart is really what's going to bring it all to this big, beautiful illumination. But I hope this video helped you, and if it did, please hit the like button, share this video with someone else who needs a quick reference, and definitely subscribe. If you need a little bit more and you want to find out about the new moon through the houses, I'll put those videos at the end, so make sure you click them and check them out. Bye.